get to help leaders redefine what success means for them. I believe everyone has a slightly different version of success. When we are connected to our version of success, when we know what we think success is and we connect to that daily, our decisions are in alignment to what matters. Unfortunately, I think most people are disconnected from their version of success. For so many years, I was chasing somebody else's version of success. I think for so many years, I was chasing the versions of success that were fed to me. And it wasn't until we had some challenges, some medical challenges at home with our journey to now being parents. That was kind of like a wake-up call for me. It was one of the first times where I really started to slow down and ask myself, like, is this what I actually want? Like, is this what I actually want for my life? Is this it? I wanted to be present during that season. And we've talked about that theme throughout my life, is being a dad's really important to me. And I wanted to be there for my wife, for my kids. I wanted to be a part of this once in a lifetime season. And so when I started asking some of my teammates, my coworkers, the people that I respect a lot, what that looked like for them, the common answer was, unfortunately, they said, hey, when our son, our daughter was born, I was back in the office the same day. And it just hit me that that's not what I want. That moment, I didn't really know what I did want. I just know I didn't want that. I'd rather be broke and figuring something out that has the bills covered than continue to stay in this role where I'm not going to be present for my wife and kids in this next season. And I just think if more people could slow down and ask themselves that question, what do I actually want?
Who is Daniel? What do we have to know about you? Paint me a picture of your story from, where you come from and your background.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me. Number one, I always appreciate it. And, it was awesome meeting you a couple weeks ago at the conference. Who am I? Who is Daniel Eugene Burke-Aguero? I'm a husband, I'm a father, proud dad to two little kiddos. I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a speaker, I'm an investor, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach. I wear a lot of hats. I'm a lot of things to a lot of people. But how we got connected, right? I got to speak at the Moment conference a couple weeks ago. And, part of that was sharing my backstory, right? And so today, what I spend the majority of my time doing is I'm a coach. I work with entrepreneurs, business owners. I'm a partner with a company called Southwestern Consulting. And I like to think that part of my gifts, part of why I'm here, is I get to help leaders redefine what success means for them. Really figuring out what success means for them, not what somebody else's version of success is, helping them figure out how to take action on that, to connect the purpose to the present, to go from implementation and idea to impact and integration. So it's a lot of fun. But part of my backstory, I actually got my start in sales when I was 18 years old. Sold essentially modern day encyclopedias door to door, 85 hours a week as a 18-year-old kid. And I helped pay my way through school, knocked on over 25,000 doors before I was 24 and learned a lot. And really kind of went from there and had a really cool career in corporate, and now in this role, in this seat, building businesses as a coach for 5 years. So that's what I'm doing.
What is the definition? What does the term success mean to you? And more importantly, go deeper into the reason why that's the definition for you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we talked about this too, right? So I gave a TED talk a couple weeks ago, right? Called "Connect Your Purpose to the Present." And the whole impetus, right, the whole seed behind this is, I believe everyone has a slightly different version of success. I believe for me right now, I have a couple different versions of success all at the same time, because I think right now what I'm going to define success as for me as a parent, for example. I think part of my definition for success as a parent today is being present, being home, being here for my kids, being with them, right? Being present in the moment. And I don't know, that may change as we get older, but I think a big part of it is when my kids are being 4 and 2 right now, a big part of my definition is actually physically being here, not being a road warrior like I once was. And I could choose to do that in the season as well, but it's important to me to be here for the moments that matter. I think part of my definition of success as a human is doing the best I can with the time that I have in the season that I'm in. I think that's maybe the bigger version of it. As far as why, I believe that's my version of success, doing the best I can and with the time I have in the season that I'm in. Is I think it ties back to, again, that concept we talked about earlier. I think when we are connected to our version of success, when we know what we think success is and we connect to that daily, our decisions are in alignment to what matters. Unfortunately, I think most people are disconnected from their version of success.
I guess there's a two part to this question. What used to be your definition of success?
I love that question, man, because I think it's I think it's part of my story, but I think unfortunately it's part of a lot of people's stories, right? Is for years, right? Growing up, I remember as a kid, we were very middle class. We weren't poor, we weren't rich, right? We always had food on the table, so I was really grateful for that. But I had a version in my head of what I thought success was going to be, right? Like when I get older, right? Success is going to be having a certain job with a certain title, making a certain amount of money, and having a car and house, and just some basic things that I associated success with growing up. And the crazy thing is once I achieved those, I realized those didn't carry the same weight that I thought it would. They didn't have the sense of fulfillment of that I was chasing in that process. I think for a lot of years, success to me was money. It was just trying to make as much money as I can, and still help people along the way and do something that I believed in, I was passionate with. But I think part of my journey to leave corporate, to go out on my own, to start something, to be in the space I'm in now is for so many years I was chasing somebody else's version of success. I think for so many years I was chasing the versions of success that were fed to me by my leaders, by the culture that we live in, right? Where it's all about the bigger house and the bigger car and the bank account, and I was chasing somebody else's version of success. And it wasn't until we had some challenges, some medical challenges at home with our journey to now being parents. That was kind of like a wake up call for me, and it's a whole story in itself. But it was one of the first times where I really started to slow down and ask myself, like, is this what I actually want? Like, is this what I actually want for my life? Is this it? Is this the next 30 years? So. I think everyone, man, I just think if more people could slow down and ask themselves that question, what do I actually want?
Give me some perspective on that pivotal point. So you were trying to live somebody else's dreams. You were looking at somebody else's version of success and kind of implementing that on yourselves. Why do you think that is? I think, why do you think that is that a lot of people, and we see this a lot with, younger individuals or individuals that are a little older, that they try to put themselves to be like somebody else, right? Walk me through kind of why people chase those types of scenarios or that dream, and then walk me through that pivotal moment of yourself when you realize that.
Yeah, these are great questions, man. So I think part of that is, I think it's easy to chase somebody else's version of success because, you don't know any better. Like, you don't know what you don't know if you don't know it, for so many years, you could say, culture, pop culture, you could say, the circle of people that I was involved with, you could say, even my parents, right? Like the people that were in my life, the versions of success that I was taking in, right, from all sides, said that success was stability at a successful W-2 job. It was, having a car, having a house, having, all the things, right, that we associated with success. So I'd say our pivotal moment came. We had a couple miscarriages before our son Jonah was born, and at the time I was in a very lucrative, W-2 position at the nicest place in town. Right, I had it all. I had the house, the car, we didn't have a white picket fence. We had a chain link fence, but it was the American dream. Right, so we had it all. And then when we finally got the good news that Jonah was healthy, right? I started asking some of the guys that I was working with what PTO or parental leave, like kind of what did that season look like, Because for me, I think deep in my heart, and it was this moment that brought it to light, was I wanted to be present during that season. And we've talked about that theme throughout my life, is being a dad's really important to me. And I wanted to be there for my wife, for my kids. I wanted to be a part of this once in a lifetime season. And so when I started asking some of my teammates, my coworkers, the people that I respect a lot, what that looked like for them, the common answer was, unfortunately, they said, hey, when our son, our daughter was born, I was back in the office the same day. I was back in the office the next day, the end of that week. And it just hit me that that's not what I want. And at that moment, I didn't really know what I did want. I just know I didn't want that. And I came to this moment where I said, you know what? I'd rather be broke and figuring something out that has the bills covered than continue to stay in this role where I'm not going to be present for my wife and kids in this next season. So, I think it was twofold. I think that was definitely kind of the wake up call for me, was this realization that I felt like a cog in a machine. I didn't want that for the next 30 years. I had lost a sense of autonomy and purpose that I once had. And then coupling that with the fact that I wanted to have a season where I was home and supporting my wife and our new baby. And it didn't feel like that was an option where I was at. So that was kind of like, I think, the turning point for me to start questioning everything, right?
That brings up a lot of questions, because that is super interesting that you said that, because a lot of the times people have the opposite. You had everything that you needed, but you were still missing something. You still felt like you were missing. What were you missing?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it was twofold, right? One, and hindsight's always 20/20, right? I say that, every time I talk about my journey, is that, some of my best friends are still where I used to work, right? So there's a ton of really good people there that live happy, healthy lives. So hindsight's 20/20, right? If I could go back, would I do it differently? I'm sure I could, right? But I think at the time, I was missing a sense of fulfillment, right? In my life, I felt like what I was doing, I felt like a cog in a machine. I think through a lot of my life, I've had autonomy, right? From when I got my start in sales as an 18-year-old kid and until now, I'd say out of the last close to 17 years of a professional working career, I've only had a W-2 job for 4 of those years, right? And it was the 4 years right before this, right? When this all happened. So I was missing autonomy and fulfillment. And I think, again, it was a bigger purpose, right? Was that, what we talked about before. And I love this quote. One of my mentors, Ron, said it to me one time, was, he said, the depth of your endurance is in direct proportion to the clarity of your vision. Like, your ability to deal with the bullshit in life and the things that it's going to take to achieve anything in life is in direct correlation to seeing what's on the other side, to knowing what you're working towards, and having there be enough of a reason to continue to endure what it's going to take day over day, week over week. And I didn't have that at the time. I wasn't connected into a version of the future that did me.
How did you find it? How did you find it? And most importantly, what I really want to talk on is, so you had your first son. How did your whole life change after that? How did you find your fulfillment? What was happening in that moment that you had your son? And I want to jump into this topic now about the fact of being there for your son. And I see that where you talk about it in your speech that you did at the TED Talks. was, that scenario where your son wanted to play Legos with you, but you couldn't because you were on your phone, right? And so to walk me through that scenario or through that storyline of your life where you had your son and what changed at that point. How did you find your fulfillment?
Yeah, man, I think it's so interesting to consider, right? That and again, this is my version of this, but I think when we know what our version of success looks like, when we have a clearly defined vision, when we have a clearly defined purpose, when we can connect to that daily, right? When we can connect our purpose to the present, it unlocks our potential to create change in this world, right? So I firmly believe that. I think that the tough part though, is that every season we get to redefine what success looks like. And I'm not perfect, right? Like I'm not a perfect human being. As much as I talk about how it's important to connect your purpose to the present, I think one of the reasons why I like talking about this is because I struggle with it. Just like at the Moment conference when we were talking about intentionality and focus and letting other people in to help, I love talking about that too because it doesn't come easy for me. So I think throughout every season, there's been almost this arc where I take, maybe it's a rock and a hard place feeling, maybe we're at the bottom, maybe something breaks, where, again, like that moment where I kind of left it all to start over because of Jonah. And I wish I could say the last 5 years have just been smooth sailing, where every day I wake up connected to my purpose and I crush it all day, every day. But I think the reality is, there have been seasons within this season. I think I'm constantly working on redefining in this season, what does success look like? I'm constantly asking myself that question. I think that's the only thing that you can do is ask yourself, what do you want? Why do you want it? Do you want it enough to do what it's going to take to achieve it? And if not, what are you doing? Yeah, I don't know if that answered that question. I got a little sideways on it, but
No, it does. And I guess what I'm really thinking about it now is what have you figured out so far?
yeah, again, that catch-22, right? Where I'll give you my answer, but it may change, right, over time. So I'll kind of go back. So when I left 2018, right? So I left the business and I came over here to build this now coaching and consulting business with some of my friends. And at the time, success, I would say, was a couple central clear focuses, right? It was achieving a certain revenue target, so the bills were paid, right? That kind of a thing. Over time, it shifted to hitting a bigger number. I won some awards and accolades, and those things were important to me. I got some titles and things; those things were important to me. But like a lot of people, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, that was really hard because for us, the model that we'd built over the last 15 years was entirely based on acquiring new business in person. So prior to the pandemic, I'm on an airplane 3 weeks a month. I have a very clear vision of not only what success looks like, but what it would take to get there. And so now when everything changes, when everything shifts and, we lose 90% of our forward-facing business overnight, just like everybody else, we have to figure this out, right? And ask, well, what does success look like in this season? What are we willing to do to get there, right? And, the last couple years, there's been some ups and there's been some downs, but I can say in this season right now, since actually the Moment conference, so July 11th, 12th, 13th, right, until December 31st, I've again redefined for this season what success is going to look like. And again, it's a couple layers. For me, there's a clear number in mind of the number of lives that I want to change, that I want to impact through coaching, right, through what we do. But the second one is launching some, something with my wife, and then launching something else with my business partner. Is that, over the last couple of years, and you heard that in the TED Talk, I love running, and running's been a really big part of my life, and it always will be. But part of this process of asking myself, well, what is my version of success in this season applying that focus funnel concept like we talked about, it was this recognition that I don't know that I have time in these next 6 months. If this is what I'm going for, I don't know that I have actually time to commit to, energy to commit to, focus to commit to, some of these big running goals. There's a season for them, and this just may not be the season for them. I don't know that everyone will agree with me on this, but I think sometimes, again, back to that idea, I think we're sold the idea that you can have it all. You can have everything you want in life all at the same time. You can have your cake and eat it too. And I think there's a nugget of truth in there. I think we can build happy, fulfilling, productive lives that do touch on each aspect of it. But again, I think you have to define what success looks like for yourself and be really intentional on if you're allowing somebody else's version of success to dictate that or not. Because if you don't, again, having your cake and eating it too, like, do you even want cake or do you want pie? Right? Right now, just some thoughts.
I like that because one of the words that I always see come up a lot from the last two guests was that word you just used right now, intentional. And I think a lot of people aren't intentional on dedicating to doing the things that they say they want to do. My question here is, what are some of the things that you do to keep your habits healthy, to keep the things, your mindset healthy, to keep the time you spend with family healthy? Now, I do want to touch on another part, and that's one of the parts of delegating. And I saw that the chart you sent out, and I've been kind of studying that, but I want to touch on that a little later. But right now, what are some of the things that you do to keep yourself in a healthy habit mindset, to keep yourself productive, even when you don't want to? How do you keep yourself intentional?
Yeah. And again, I'll put the nugget on this, right? There are hundreds of different ways to do this, right? And there's no one size fits all approach. And I geek out about this stuff. It's literally like my career to try this stuff out, to talk about this, to work on this with other people. So I've tried all the things, right? I've had seasons where, again, success to me, healthy habits to me was waking up at the butt crack of dawn and doing something super intense. And this is not one of those seasons. For right now, this season that I'm in right now, the things that help me stay grounded are like a practice of journaling and just feeding myself positive things in the morning, books and audio and journaling and having an intentional plan. Like every Sunday, I have my plan laid out for the week, and then every day I revisit the plan at the beginning and at the end of the day, and I try and catch myself doing things right, and just one or two areas to focus on to fix the next day and not get bogged down in all the things that went wrong. And again, I process a lot of that through journaling and through writing. And man, you know what? I think one of the other ones, this has been consistent on and off, I think, over the last couple of years. I think one of the most powerful ones, and I think anybody can do this, is to put your freaking phone down. As crazy as this sounds, I finish work normally between 5:30 and 6. I work from home. I work upstairs, and then I go downstairs and hang out with the family. I don't need my phone. Like, just the reality of life. If the house is burning down, if somebody really needs me, they can reach my wife. Again, like, there are other ways to get a hold of me. And I've just found like I need sometimes that physical separation from the things that can unconsciously distract me. Like if I'm not intentional, right, back to this word about putting my phone down, like the last hour before bed, if I don't leave it in another room, I can catch myself on my phone in my bed scrolling until I pass out, right? If I'm not intentional about leaving my phone in the office, I can catch myself on my phone scrolling or checking email or quote unquote trying to be productive and doing good things during dinner, right? Or right after dinner, or when we're on our family walk. If I'm not intentional about physically creating some separation, I can unintentionally sacrifice the moment for what matters most.
It kind of makes it seem like the phone can either make your life or it can break your life. That's kind of how I see it. Like you can either do a lot with it or you can waste a lot of your time and life with it. Why do you think is?
Well, my thought was just at the end of the day, it's a tool, right? And one of my favorite quotes is, a fool with a tool is still a fool, right? So if you don't know how to properly use a tool and put the tool down and switch the tool for something else, or Another version of that same quote is to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? Like if we're not intentional about putting the phone down or using the phone in a smart way or having boundaries around the phone or things like that, it's a tool and it's designed to take our attention. It's literally designed for that, literally designed to get us to spend as much time as possible on it. And so, of course, if we're not intentional about creating boundaries, that's what we're going to do. It's what it's designed for. Again, a fool with a tool is still a fool.
Break down for me the chart, and I really love how this chart is broken down of doing less for more impact. So you have your tasks, you eliminate them, you spice up, you can automate, you delegate, and then you either concentrate or procrastinate. Break me down through that funnel system and why it's important.
Yeah. So and again, I'll be the first to admit, like, this isn't new, right? This is not the first time you've heard the importance of these things. I first learned about this actually when, again, I think I was 18, right? I was selling books door to door, but a guy named Rory Vaden, he's got a really cool book called Procrastinate on Purpose, which is literally what I talked about, right? It's procrastinating on purpose. It goes a lot more into depth on this topic, so definitely check it out. But I think it's a really simple framework that really gives you permission. I think that's the biggest problem, is that you can't actually manage time. Like, time management isn't actually a real thing. You can only manage yourself, right? And so really when we're looking at this concept of applying the focus funnel, all we're trying to answer is, are you utilizing your time to the highest and best use of your ability? Most of us aren't. Most of us live a life that's reactive, that is unconsciously filling the day with things that don't actually matter that much. Like, very few people are living their life on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the most proactive, productive, focused version of themselves, and 1 being not. Almost nobody lives their life at a 9 or a 10. Most of us live our life at like a 6 or a 7, right? There's always room for growth. So all the focus funnel is, it's a tool that you can use to audit everything in your life, every decision, responsibility, task, and start putting it through this funnel and start eliminating, automating, delegating, so that the only thing that comes out the bottom of the funnel are the things that matter most. And at that point, it's up to you to decide whether or not you do them now or you intentionally procrastinate on purpose. And the fun part about scaling and utilizing your time to the highest and best is that when you intentionally procrastinate something on purpose, oftentimes those are also things that can eventually be delegated as well. Just simply put, the most successful leaders in any industry are people who are really intentional and about doing less. They figure out what they're really good at, and then they get really good at helping other people help them do what they're really good at. And they just continue to whittle that down to, again, whatever their highest and best use of their time is, so they can bring more impact.
Through everything that you're doing right now, how do you, what legacy do you want to leave for your children?
Oh man, that's a good question, man. I've been thinking about that. I want Jonah and Josie to believe that through hard work and discipline and intentionality, that they can do anything they set their minds to. I want Jonah and Josie to live a life of peace, because they have figured out for themselves what success looks like. And they may not do this until they're older. I may not even see this, right? But when I think of like my legacy, I hope and I pray that Jonah and Josie can figure out what success looks like to them, that they can connect to that version of success, that they can connect their purpose to the present moment. They can live their life with that intention, because that would, I believe, unlock their potential to create change in the world.
One of the biggest things that I think has a big impact as being a parent and being so busy is, and I've seen this firsthand, not for myself, but with people that I'm always around and my own parents, is that you don't necessarily make time to be there for the things that matter the most. Why is that? What can people do to be better at that? a lot of people do want to spend time with their kids or their family, but they think they're too busy. They think that they have so many things to do and they don't delegate it until it's the wrong moment. They might regret it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think again, there's layers to that question, right? Because some people may not even feel like they have the option to delegate, right? I think it's really easy to say, I'll back this up. A lot of the clients that I've met over the years, right? Sometimes when we meet them, they're already really successful and they want to go to this next level, but they feel like they're already burning the candle at both ends, right? For so many years, they were the ones that put in the work to get to where they are. And so it's really hard for them to envision doing anything else. I think why a lot of people don't do it is the first one is some people don't even think they can. They don't even think it's an option. I think the second piece is, again, it's back to that same question, man, of like, if you're really digging into this, what does success mean to you? Because again, this is where, and again, this isn't going to apply to everybody, but I think there's a lot of people out there who say that they want to be there for those moments that matter with their kids. And again, I'll use the example. I was talking with a client who said, man, I want to be home for my kids and have dinner with them, at least 3 or 4 times a week. Right. And yet they allowed themselves to stay in the office till whatever time. Right. And their answer was, well, but if I don't stay, then I won't hit the numbers that I want to hit for, my manager. If I don't stay, then I'm not going to make the money that like I want to make. My challenge again is then it's to really ask that question. It's like, okay, so are you telling me that hitting the numbers for your manager is more important or making the money is more important? Like, do you actually need to make that much money? Like if you made $5,000 less per year, but you were home every night for dinner and you were happier, wouldn't that be worth it? Again, or on the other end, it's like, well, if you're not going to get fired and you're doing your job well, and again, this is assuming you have autonomy, you're probably a business owner, all this stuff. It's like, who cares, man? Like, who cares if somebody wants you to hit an activity target or not, if you're doing the best that you can with the time that you have and the season that you're in. If you've clearly defined for yourself what success looks like, then make the freaking most out of the time that you have and then be okay with whatever lands on the other side. Because back to the same piece, if you tell me that this is important to you and you are making time for it, then everything else will get better. You'll be more productive at work. You'll be more focused. You'll probably make more money because you're present. I don't know. It's back to that same question, right? I just don't think I think most people haven't figured out for themselves what their actual version of success is.
How do you want your kids to remember you as a father figure and as Daniel, rather than the things you've done and the things that people have seen you as on, TV or things like that, as your business? How do you want your kids and your family to remember you?
Patient, loving, kind, intentional, positive, encouraging, supportive, a man of integrity. Yeah. I don't need to be the world famous anything, right? It's like, one of the affirmations that I've been playing with lately is that I'm a rock for my family and a superhero to my kids. I
like that. And so if there's any way that you can look back at your life and you can tell your younger self one thing now that you know now, what would that thing be? What would you tell your 18-year-old Daniel?
Ooh, I don't know that 18-year-old Daniel would have listened. Let's start there, right? So if I had a time machine, I could go back and tell myself these sage words of wisdom. 18-year-old me would have told 33-year-old me to probably go pound sand, right? So I don't know, man. I think if I think back to the conversations that I had with my mentors and my leaders, that I think that I would share to any 18-year-old kid, right, who's figuring out for themselves what life looks like. I'd say be patient, be open, open-minded, right? To try new things, to try new experiences. That's honestly, I think that's the only way that we really truly start to figure out, right, what success actually means to us. It's by trying different things and being put in different situations. And sometimes you don't like it, and that's kind of the point. Is how do you know if you like something if you don't try it? How do you know if you want a version of success or not until you go for it? I don't know. I just think the advice that I'd give any young adult today is the same advice I would have given myself if I had that ability. It's to be open-minded, to try new things, do your best in the season that you're in with the time that you have. Don't be afraid to fail, right? Ultimately, I think that's where a lot of my story came from was as an 18-year-old kid, I had stepped way the heck out of my comfort zone to do something crazy. And I saw some success, but it was also really hard, and I failed, and I got tested and pushed. And back to that idea about, growth in any aspect is you don't grow when it's easy, you grow when it's hard. So don't be afraid to put yourself in situations and dig your way out.
Do you regret anything? Do you regret anything that you either didn't take a chance on, something that you might have done, or is there even any move that you had happen that you had a big mistake on, downfall, and you learned from it? I guess that's a two-part.
Yeah. My sassy answer was I regret not buying Bitcoin when it was like 5 cents on the dollar, right? No, man, it's catch-22, right? Because I think when I look back on my life, there are things that I am not proud of, right? There are moments in life that, that I hurt other people, right? Whether it's through my actions, through my words, where I let people down, and those suck, period, right? And yet on the backside of those, I think it's this concept that like we're most powerfully positioned to serve the person that we once were, right? And so I think without my story, I don't think I'd be here today. And I don't think without my story and the decisions I made, good or bad, I don't think I'd have the ability to speak into the lives of the people that I work with now if it wasn't for the decisions I made, good and bad. So I don't know. It's a weird question. I don't regret anything, but also at the same time, I also recognize the pain that I've caused. Right.
What was that? What was that big life lesson? Like that biggest, not life lesson. I hate that. I hate putting it in that perspective. I think it's the biggest thing that you learned from. I guess from the knowledge that from the age that you had, where you had the realization that you can do something or create something to now. What is that one thing that you learned that is in your morals, that is a big thing that you believe on?
I believe that there are more good people than bad people in the world. That's it. Is that, I just think growing up, I was lucky enough to meet a lot of people from a lot of different circumstances and backgrounds. And, then you kind of fast forward through my life when I was, sitting down on the doorsteps and in the homes of people from all sorts of different walks of life, all across the country as a young adult. Over the next season of my life when I was working with primarily like veterans, active duty service members, again, from all sorts of walks of life and stations and places in their journeys. And now, right, over the last 5 years, as I've, met and interacted with thousands of people, I believe there are more good people than bad people in the world. And I believe if we choose to focus on that, the world is a better place. I believe that there are more good people than bad people in the world, but if we choose to focus on the things that are going wrong, it feels like there are more bad people than good people in the world.
I like pointing out this ending question, and it's a question that the last guest left for you, not knowing that you were going to be the next guest. And
sweet.
The question that they left for you, and this is actually Daniel Gomez that left this question, was, and I'm pretty sure you're more self-aware of this than anything, but maybe you can answer it in a way that you can give this advice to somebody else or ask this question to people?
I'll just answer it as it comes. Yeah, hit me.
The way it's worded is, what are you going to do? When are you going to give yourself permission to dream bigger in your life and in business? And how does that look like for you?
Daniel Gomez, hit me with the questions I know I need to hear. Come on, man. Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm reading a book right now. One of my favorite authors is Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. It's called 10x is better than 2x. And it's interesting. What an interesting question from Daniel to consider too, because I think this is actually something, candidly, that I'm working through right now, like in real time. I think for a long time, my vision for the future, my dreams, they weren't big. Like they were, they were bigger than what I had at the moment, right? But I would argue that they were linear, they were incremental, they were things that made sense. If I take this moment and then I kind of extrapolate it over time, then we should be here, right? Man, Daniel's question about when are you going to allow yourself to dream big, I think is also the crux of the book that I'm reading through, that 10x is better than 2x. You could say shoot for the stars, hit the moon, however you want to phrase it, but that's not something that naturally comes easily for me. That's actually something that I have to work on. So I don't know that I have a great answer to that question. When am I going to allow myself to start dreaming big? I think I'm trying to right now. I'm trying to right now, because my future, whenever I think about it, again, it's all linear. It's all stuff that it kind of just makes sense based on where I'm at and where I'm going. And I think where some of Daniel's question is coming from is that when we allow ourselves to think so big, so massively big, right? It starts to filter out all the BS that is clouding our way of actually getting there. I'm working on that myself.